Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Grey Goo. Is it the worst title for a real-time strategy ever? It's possible. It's definitely in the top 3, I would say. But as it turns out, Grey Goo is actually an end-of-the-world scenario involving self-replicating nanobots. That's a real thing. It's been around in sci-fi for quite some time. Admittedly, the concept has since been debunked, but regardless, it's a cool idea. And it's brought to you by Petroglyph and Grey Box. Now, Petroglyph are known perhaps for having some of the ex-developers from Westwood. They made Universe at War, which I outspokenly kind of liked. Had some really interesting ideas, but it seemed to suffer from the fact that the game was designed to be played on both console and PC, which meant that there were UI problems, and it also was one of the first games to experience the horror of Games for Windows Live. This was a game where you literally had to sign up to Games for Windows Live Gold in order to play the ranked mode. It was pretty terrible. So, not a great bet to get in bed with Microsoft on that one. They made a couple of other things as well. They made Guardians of Graxia, and they also worked on End of Nations, which has since been abandoned, which is kind of a shame because it was actually looking pretty good. At the time that I played it, it was very much like playing a little bit of World in Conflict, really, and a squad-based RTS. I quite enjoyed it. But unfortunately, things went south on that one. But now they bring you Grey Goo, which is more of a classic real-time strategy in the Command and Conquer style. We're going to do some skirmish just to show you how things go. I'm going to show you all the mechanics, I'll give you my opinions, and we'll jump into the options a little bit later on for those who happen to be interested in that. All right, let's have a look at the skirmish, shall we? I'm going to demonstrate a couple of factions for you here, and I'll give you my opinion on the rest of the stuff as well. This game does have a full campaign. It also has a skirmish mode and 1v1 and 2v2 multiplayer. So, we're going to start off in a 1v1 map. We'll go to Mountain Pass, I think, and I'm going to play the beta faction, whereas I'm going to set the Goo as the other faction. The reason for that is I don't really like playing the Goo. It's not really my style. They have a fairly different playstyle to the other two factions, and I rather like the beta faction, so I do want to demonstrate the Goo because it's very interesting, but I just don't want to play them. So let's do that. All right, let's dive in right here. Outside of the skirmish and the multiplayer, of course, you do have the campaign, which is actually really quite interesting because it is stacked full of really good quality CGI cutscenes, including people that look almost real. I mean, I mistook some of them for people in makeup. I assume that some of you remember the old Westwood cutscenes from back in the day. They were quite the things, were they not? And, well, I was almost convinced that these things just had to be a cutscene. Like, it's got to be people in makeup, surely. No, it actually does not. They're CG, and they're pretty amazing. Alright, welcome to Grey Goo. So, the beta faction starts with the headquarters here, and a single unit, the Commando, who is going to go and run around and just do a little bit of scouting here, just to... Oh, we don't want to bring up that. There we go. Let's do a little bit of scouting here. Alright, so I'm going to start off by building a refinery. So, the way that the beta faction works, which is also sort of similar to the way that the human faction works, is via modular building. So you start with an HQ, which is going to allow you to build some stuff. You start off by getting a refinery, which will then build an extractor. Now, the refinery is going to spawn as many harvesters as it needs in order to efficiently mine from that location. So the distance doesn't actually really make too much of a difference. So you can actually put it pretty far away, but obviously the harvesters are going to be at risk if you have them traveling across open ground. Hello, we've got an enemy scout unit here, so I'm going to try and take it out with my Commando. That is a drover. We don't want that anywhere near. Thank you very much. All right, now that I've got the factory down, I'll be able to start building units. I'm going to start building a stalker unit right here, and then I'm going to think about ways that I can try and expand and grab more resources. So in this game, you're looking for these catalyst pools, which the human and the beta factions will mine, whereas the goo faction, well, they start with a giant blob of goo, just this huge cloud of nanites, essentially. And the way that they gather resources is to move over catalyst pools and collect resources from them, then move on to the next one, and then go back once the resources have regenerated, which is a more micro-intensive way of doing things. It's a little bit strange, of course, but it's a very interesting way of doing things regardless. So the Goo is really quite a neat faction indeed. I'm going to throw down a small hub here. The beta faction builds off of hubs, which can be built pretty much anywhere within vision range, and they can contain either 2, 4, or 6 modules. Alright, we've got a stalker out here. I can also add one more module onto my headquarters, which will allow me to build an extra unit. So, let's build a tank attachment, which is going to allow me to build tanks from here. Now, you may have noticed the interface down at the bottom is a little bit odd. It's actually kind of inspired by Dota-style games in the way that you can access almost anything, in fact, everything in the game via a set of key combinations. So I want to build a structure. I don't have to go back to my base. I could be over here. I can hit Q. And then this will be Q, W, E, and R. You see how that works? And then T, of course. Quirt is in there as well for 5. So if I want to build another refinery, I'd hit Q again, which is actually a pretty nice way of doing things and allows you, once you've learned the system, to build stuff very quickly. And it doesn't involve repeatedly going back to the base. In fact, you can actually automate production here, as you can see right here. So I'm just going to automate building. Actually, we're going to cancel that, and we're going to build a Predator here. There we go. Nice big tank unit. And we need to think about expanding, don't we? So we have this hub over here. I think there's a catalyst pool right here. I'm going to turn on the resource display. Can I mine from that? Yes, it looks like I can. So if I build a refinery here, then I'll be able to build an extractor on top of that, and I'll be able to get some more stuff. So going back to the hotkey system and how everything works for a moment, this is really quite key to the way that the game plays out, because it's very different to something like StarCraft. This is much more similar to something like Command & Conquer, which had a bunch of ways to build things without being at your base. It actually had like a building menu over to the side, whereas at StarCraft, you have to go back to the base, or use hotkeys, of course, to construct from a particular area. And that can be off-putting, certainly to some people, I would say. Whereas this game has tried to simplify the macro process quite a lot. Once you've learned how it works, I can build units right from here. I can just tap the E button and then hit W. Actually, it's W-E, never mind. And that will allow me to build a heavy unit. Or it's actually W, sorry, and they're light units. So if I hit W and then E, I'm going to get a Predator unit. Or alternatively, I can just put it on loop so it does nothing but build Predators, if that's all I want from it. It's pretty easy, and it actually reminds me a little bit of the system behind Supreme Commander and Total Annihilation. It's very much about minimizing the amount of macro that you have to do yourself and reducing the number of clicks. And that, I think, is going to be attractive to a lot of people. It may be anathema for those of you that really like games like StarCraft, which are very macro-orientated. They're also very micro-orientated. This game is really kind of neither of those things. You don't have units which have abilities. Everything is passive. So you can upgrade, say, the Stalker to Cloak and then fire a sniper gun. Now, you don't have to do anything. You just have to move the thing for a couple of seconds, and then it'll cloak, and then it'll use its sniper gun. So it's all really quite simple, the way that it actually operates. And the micro potential of units is minimal. They move quite slowly, and they also bump off of other units in the way that the pathing works. So if you want to specifically pull back units from a fight, you can do that. It's just, it's not a particularly great way of doing things necessarily. Alright, the other thing I want to talk about is the upgrade system. So there are 5 sets of upgrades available, which will allow you to upgrade different units with different passive abilities. Now, you can only pick one out of each category, and it will fundamentally change the way that the unit works. So if you're thinking about investing in a lot of Predators, then you're probably going to want the Predator upgrade, which allows it to target things individually, which is a really kind of helpful way of doing things and bring down more firepower on the right target. Alright, so I've got one expansion. We might actually think about going for another one. I think we can get one over here. In fact, we can actually build a slightly larger hub if we like, but we just don't have the space. So we're going to put down find a small hub there. There we go. And then we can start mining from that. Now, I need to be thinking about building a larger hub because I'm not producing anywhere near enough here. So I'm going to throw down a medium hub, and then we're going to try and build a larger factory and put some more add-ons on it. The more add-ons you've got attached to a factory, the more units you're able to build out of it. So right now, I'm kind of limited to building light tank units. But I might want some air units, for instance. So I'm going to have to do that and build some air pads in order to make that happen. So I have a reasonable little army here that I'm scouting out with. I'm going to just bind it to hotkey 1, which is nice and easy, so I know where it is and what it's doing. And I'm also working on the upgrade. And in the meantime, we can get ourselves a refinery. Just type QQQ for that. You actually need vision, unfortunately, to do this. That's like the one restriction of where you can build as the beta. You need vision, which can be a little bit annoying at times because you're slightly out of range. You need to move a unit in order to actually make things happen, which is slightly annoying, as I said, but certainly not the worst thing to ever happen. All right. This might make you kind of interested if you play a lot of Dota-style games, something like League of Legends. There's actually forest in this game, which will make your units invisible. Oh, damn. All right, they are angry. Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier. If I don't have enough production down, then this is going to be a real problem. So I'm going to get a factory up here, And we're going to get an artillery attachment and a tank attachment. And we'll get a stealth attachment as well. So things are about to get a little bit messy. And I don't think I actually have the units. And I'm a little bit too far out to fight against this. But we will try regardless. I'm going to end up losing a refinery, probably a second one here. My predators will do a decent job of fending some of this off. But this is a lot of army that just came down on me. So, while you can avoid some of the micro and macro, some of the tedium, I would say, has been kind of removed. Some people, of course, view that as skill cap, and that's an entirely valid opinion. But some of the complexity and the amount of clicks required in order to make things work have been removed. You still have to build pretty fast. Like, this is not 20 minutes, no rush, lol, lol, lol. These guys are going to fight you whether you like it or not, and they're going to do damage. And if you don't do anything about that, then you're in serious trouble. I brought my army back, and I should now finally be able to crush this, but I lost an expansion in the process, so that's not too good, and it's going to take quite a bit of work, I think, to get that running properly again. There we go. I also need to start repairing this stuff. Alright, cool, we have a large factory up, so I can build all sorts of things with this now. I could build a Hailstorm artillery unit. I can also build an avalanche here. So we have some nice modules attached to this thing. That also unlocks further tech upgrades if I so desire. But I'm going to have them build... I could build a Seeker stealth detector now as well, which is always nice to have. I think I'm going to get avalanches. We're just going to loop those for the time being. Alright, we need to move into a defensive position here as well. Now, you can also build structures which will defend. In the case of the beta, you actually build walls, and these walls can then be staffed by various units that can jump onto them. So you can turn most units in the game into turrets, which is really a kind of neat way of doing things, I think. Alright, we're going to bind these to number 1, and then all of the units that come out of here, we're just going to use kind of defensively for the time being, since we ended up taking a lot of damage here. We also lost the hub in the center, so our expansion currently doesn't run. So we want to try and get that sorted out. Now, with this, I can actually build 3 things at a time. So if I want to build a hailstorm, an avalanche, and a hailstorm, then I could do that. That would work pretty well. And then we're gonna loop these. There we go. It's gonna cost quite a bit to do that, but I think we should be able to do it. I'm gonna send my predator up there as a turret, and then we're gonna try and hunt down the goo, because the goo's very mobile. It's all over the place. So what do I think of it so far? Well, I've played quite a lot of it. I've played a lot of multiplayer. I actually played back in the alpha of this, when it was a lot ropier than it is now. It actually plays pretty well right now. It feels pretty smooth. It runs well. It looks good as well. It's got a nice aesthetic, I feel. Hello. You can die. Thank you very much. There we go. We did get our tech upgrade done, didn't we? Yes, we have target acquisition. So we can now retarget and actually micromanage these units in order to maximize their firepower, which is a pretty neat way of doing things. I want to think about another tech upgrade as well, but right now I'm running a little bit low on money. That's not good at all. Preferably don't want to die to that, but we might not actually have a choice. Alright, get the artillery piece in position. Try and move some defensive units out here to help. There we go. Might want to build some turrets over here as well. We lost another damn extractor. Not ideal. But we do have some powerful artillery units coming up, so that should help a little bit. There we go. Rebuild that. Sweet. In the meantime, let's hunt this damn goo. Where did it go? Yeah, I mean, it controls pretty well. It's quite slow, I noticed. So if you're looking for a high-speed RTS, then this is obviously not it. You want to be playing something like StarCraft 2 for that. It really does remind me of the speed of something like Command & Conquer 3, or something along those lines. Oh, this is getting messy. We don't like that, do we? Let's see if we can... thankfully, we do have a very powerful siege unit that punches through their armor pretty quickly. As you can see, that's a very powerful unit. We like that. Let's try and rebuild this refinery again. And hopefully we can actually get some defenses on these walls. That will help a little bit. Let's get these guys to continue to rebuild here. Oh, hello. Oh, God, they're attacking that now as well. They're all over the bloody place. I think I'm going to have to bring my army back. I still haven't found the goo. I don't know where they're hiding. They're very mobile. That's the problem with them. They're not easy to kill, because you have no idea where the bastards end up being. Alright, let's deploy our artillery units in order to try and fend this attack off. I think we need to get some of our defenses a little bit closer, actually. What if I just built a turret right there, actually? Kind of built a wall. That would do the job. That said, there is something to be... I think there's a benefit to having slow units, and that's that you really have to be very careful with how you commit your forces. If your forces are across the other side of the map, there is no quick way to get them back. So if your defenses aren't good enough, then you're going to be in some serious trouble. You're very, very vulnerable to harassment. in the way that these guys are actually doing right now. Thankfully, they haven't managed to damage me too much, but we're going to get these things repaired. There we go. Alright, I'm going to send them over there and hopefully try and hunt them down. But you want to be focusing on your defenses, and I think that that's something of a, at least in terms of static defense, that's a very classic idea. I think StarCraft has, for the most part, kind of dispelled that and said, look, you know, static defense shouldn't be that effective. You should have to be mobile all the time. And they gave you a bunch of ways to do that and speed around the map. Now, in Grey Goo, that's not really the case. So it's a bit of a slower-paced RTS that is perhaps actually aimed at an older demographic, the kind of people that used to enjoy Command & Conquer back in the day. The question is, does it succeed in kind of being a Command & Conquer... I wouldn't even say clone, because it's not. Like some kind of spiritual successor to CNC. Well, I think it lacks a decent amount of charm compared to Command & Conquer. A lot of the units are reasonably, I'd say, generic. They kind of just seem to exist to fulfill a particular role rather than actually being interesting in and of their own right, which I think could be a problem. You know, you've got no really cool units like the Mammoth Tank unless you count the Hand of Rook, which is a super unit. Each of the 3 factions has a super unit, which are all pretty damn good, frankly. You know, they're both effective and quite a lot of fun to use, but simultaneously, outside of that, you're producing units which are ultimately just kind of a little bit dull, which is a little bit of a shame, and all of the units suffer from this. The humans have a similar set of units. In fact, they all have similar sets of units. There are some differences between them, like for instance, the basic goo unit, the Delver or Drover, it's the Drover, is spawned in groups of 4 and also has a kind of AoE shotgun cone attack. So it's not that all the units are identical, it's just the differentiation, the kind of level of asymmetry is perhaps not as high as people would want it to be, and I think that the game suffers from attempting to sort of find its place and really figure out exactly where its character is, you know, like, why is it that people should be interested in Grey Goo beyond it simply being an RTS in an era where we don't actually have that many RTSs to choose from. And I think perhaps it being an RTS in an era where we don't have that many to choose from is maybe enough to get people interested. And I'd say that it's very competent at what it does. It absolutely is. It's helped immensely by the soundtrack of Frank Lepaki, which is, as you might imagine, absolutely phenomenal. I'm a huge fan of that. He did a really, really good job with it. Some of the music for the Goo is a little bit weird. It's kind of more of a dubstep style, which is maybe not my personal preference. But outside of that, I think there's a lot to be said for Frank Lepaki's soundtrack here, which really helps remind people that, yes, the lineage is there. You know, these are the guys that used to do Command & Conquer, and you should probably pay attention because they know what they're doing. And hell, I mean, it's not like they made bad games. Well, did they make bad? No, I wouldn't say Petroglyph have made bad games in the past. They made games that have faults, certainly, but, you know, I wouldn't call games like Empire at War a bad game or Universe at War. Absolutely not. You know, they absolutely have their moments, no doubt about that one. I'm trying exactly to find out where these artillery pieces are. I think they're on the ridge there, which is why I can't get at them. We need some vision up there. Vision is a very key component, and height is a very key component in this game as well, so positioning is a big deal, and I'm losing a lot of units because I'm not staying on top of that. I really need to expand again as well, actually, but it's going to be a little bit difficult to defend everything if that is the case. Oh, hello. Let's get rid of you, thank you. I want to get on there and make sure that we can eliminate it. Half of my stuff just melted. Absolutely brutal. But aside from, like, those complaints, I think they're kind of the lack of individual character, I'd say that it's still a really solid RTS in and of its own right. It's got a pretty cool campaign. The story is actually quite interesting, I tend to find. I don't know where these guys are. What's... Oh, they're probably on the hill. Yeah, because I keep forgetting that the Goo can actually climb hills, so I'm getting battered here. I'm going to need to change my unit composition around. I think I need either a flying unit. Yeah, I think I need a flying unit. So I'm going to build a small hub, and then I'm going to build a factory, which I'm going to try and build flying units from. I'm pretty sure the Seeker doesn't let me see up there. So I think I'm going to need something flying to detect it. Let's get an air attachment. There we go. This will hopefully do the job here. And I will probably need to build hangars as well, so we're going to need to build a hub for that. But this is getting pretty messy. I'm probably going to lose this game. I'm getting hammered. And I'm not really able to harass the enemy either, which is really not helping matters at all. Oh man, this is a mess. Well, I'm glad to say that the AI is at least challenging, no doubt about that. So if you're a skirmish player, then you should hopefully enjoy that. We'll see if there's anything that we can end up doing here. Alright. Trying to build this stuff, but I don't have the money for it. I think I'm going to have to actually stop building units out of this factory here, because I just can't afford the big expensive siege units right now. Oh, I'm just in firing range here. This is useless. My stuff is melting into goo. Pretty damn brutal advantage that they have there. That's what I get for forgetting detection. This is like getting killed by a Dark Templar in StarCraft 2. But yeah, it's very CNC-like, and I think in a lot of the right ways. It is kind of a shame, I suppose. Command & Conquer, I think, has a heritage that works really, really, really well for it. Like, Kane was a compelling character. All of the Red Alert, kind of Soviet versus Allies thing was a very compelling and cheesy idea. And this is set in the future and maybe isn't quite that. But that's also okay. That's not a terrible thing. You know, not everything can be an absolute classic in terms of the characters that it brings into play. It does so competently with the storytelling, and mechanically it's, as I said, pretty damn solid as well. But it really comes down to the kind of RTS that you enjoy. Do you enjoy a slightly slower paced, maybe defensive style of real-time strategy that is less micro-intensive and is certainly a great deal more focused on base building and area control, because that's what this game does. Okay, we have a hangar, thank God. Let's get a Stratos out there so that we can actually see this stuff and stop our stuff from being melted. And then we might be able to fight back from this position. It's my own damn fault. I was pretty sodding idiotic not to actually get the detection out in the first place. Let's get these walls repaired. Okay, so we should have a scout aircraft out any minute now. Any minute. It's being built from the hangar. We really need to see where these damn artillery pieces are so we can kill them. Alright. Thank God we got it out. Let's find them. Where the hell are they? Oh, never mind. My entire army melted before I get... They're on the hill right there, the bastards. Look at them. Oh, we're going to lose this one, no doubt. We are completely outnumbered and outgunned. Let's actually play a little bit of the human faction. We're going to quit out of this one because I've obviously lost at this point. But let's play a little bit of the human faction as well, just to kind of show you what's going on with that. I got absolutely destroyed there. Kind of impressive, really. Let's talk a little bit about performance. You can see the red map at the end. They were all over the place. I completely failed to make that one work. All right, we're going to play Grotto Assault here. I'm going to play the human faction this time, which is a little bit different in the way that it actually builds things up. And we'll play against the goo again because I want a little bit of vengeance. There we go. Performance-wise, it's for the most part fine. In late game, it does have some frame drops. Although performance-wise on my machine, I've not really had too many problems. While capturing, I've had some drops, but playing normally, it's usually sitting comfortably at 120 frames per second with all the details cranked up to maximum without any problems whatsoever. We'll have a quick look at the options menu because it's quite relevant, I think, if you want to learn anything about a real-time strategy. There's certain things that RTSs need, and perhaps there are things that are maybe lacking within Grey Goo. So let's start with gameplay here. So you have a health bar display, which allows you to show damaged. You can have always on, which I think is the best way to do it if you happen to be playing. You can also do group move at slowest unit speed, which is actually a nice little feature for those of you that don't want to manage large groups of units that have differing speeds. So you can turn that on if you like. I personally don't like that because I think it takes away from micro potential, but some people are going to enjoy that. Again, it's an optional nice little feature for those who don't want to worry too much about the small stuff. I can respect that even if I don't necessarily want to use most of it. You can do all of this is very important. You do not, maybe you do understand just how important having these sliders is. And you go all the way up to like 200%. This is going to be very cool, I think, for those that have mobility issues, particularly. Being able to actually increase the scroll speed that high is very useful for those that have a limited range of mobility. So I hope that that's a feature that they particularly find useful. Although as far as I know, the game doesn't really have a color deficient option, which is unfortunate. So those that suffer from color deficiency might have a few problems here and there. Although, what I will say is that you can change the color of your units in the pre-launch lobby, which might be helpful for people, although the UI might be confusing in places. Okay, outside of that, huge amounts of audio options. That is actually an impressive audio options menu, I've got to admit there. And you also have a jukebox, which allows you to, if you want, you can let it just use the music from the particular faction, and it will be dynamic as well. So while you're building, it's going to have a calmer music. While you're fighting, it's going to have a battle soundtrack. I just like listening to all of the stuff, so I put them all in there, which is awesome. It's like almost 2 hours of Frank Klepacki stuff here. It's really great, so I'm very happy to see that. Full hotkey rebinding, very important, although I've got to say, I think the default hotkeys are really good. I've felt no desire whatsoever to change any of them. They're all familiar and make sense, but I really like this item selection system. I think it's really great. It reminds me of Tribes and Smite in the way that those games did communication that was a hotkey combination based. But what they've done is they've taken that idea, which again is very familiar to to Dota players, and they've said, well, what if we could just make every unit accessible with a couple of key presses, and you could manage your entire economy and everything just by learning that system. That's great. I love that. That's a genuine piece of, would I go as far as to say innovation? I don't recall other games doing that. I may be wrong here. It is possible that an RTS has attempted it in the past, but I'm happy to see it here regardless. And you can also rebind everything here. You even have specific stuff for Mother Goo as opposed to other things like that. You can go up to 12 of those. That's really important if you're playing the Goo faction, so I like that. And then a bunch of useful player stuff here as well that, again, I very much appreciate. So overall, that's pretty good. Video options-wise, you got most of what you need under advanced here. There's not really a lot to say about it. It's got what I would expect. As far as I know, it doesn't have an anti-aliasing option unless it's hidden in here somewhere, which is possible. They've started to call anti-aliasing by a bunch of different names, which is a little bit silly. I'm not sure why they keep doing that, but it doesn't appear to be here as far as I can tell. But outside of that, we've got that cranked up to maximum. It supports full range of resolutions up to and including 4K, as you can see right there, up to 144 Hertz. So this is a PC game through and through, no doubt, which I am very happy with. So yeah, although I would say most of the options are fine, I don't think you can really compete with the titan that is StarCraft 2 when it comes to options. They have a huge amount of options in terms of customizing your visual experience. And I enjoy that very much. I think that's something they need to add. They're also lacking things like replays and observer mode for multiplayer. So if they have any esports aspirations, then they're kind of stunting their ability to do that out of the gate. That might be something that they prioritize later on down the line. So I think gameplay-wise, they could probably add a few more things. Again, just look at what StarCraft did and add that. It's really that simple. StarCraft has so many useful options that you don't realize that you need until you come across a situation where it ends up being invaluable. So yeah, look at the top, absolutely, and then work from there. Great, okay, let's jump in and show the human faction here. So you can notice that the UI's changed around a little bit. I think that the UI is pretty practical for both the humans and the beta, although what I will say is it's a little bit too large for the goo. It takes up a little bit too much screen real estate for no real reason, so I'm not really a huge fan of that. Now, you'll notice that the human stuff actually warps in very stylishly from the sky here, which I do enjoy a great deal. The human faction actually seems to be a bit of a misnomer, strangely enough, because there don't appear to actually be that many humans involved in it at all. Get this little scout unit, the Trident here, so that's going to have a look around. Alright, great. So how do you expand with these guys? Well, they expand a little bit differently. They don't do hubs, they do conduits, and with a conduit, what you can do is you can connect power to different things, and you kind of have to do that. And that's a bit of a disadvantage, because if the conduit gets broken, then you're in a lot of trouble. And defending the conduits are difficult. The more you expand, the more difficult it becomes as the human. So you're actually encouraged to make a very compact base as the humans. That said, the advantage of the conduit system is it allows you to teleport buildings anywhere onto the conduit. So you can build defensive turrets, which can then be teleported, which is a really neat idea. So if we build a conduit kind of out here, then we can build a turret on it. All right, I'm going to build... we can build either revolvers or tridents. We're going to build tridents, I think, and we'll put them in a loop there. There we go. And we also want to look and find out where the next resource pool is. Okay, so we want to be there. Now, if I put an anti-heavy sentinel here, for instance, I can then later on teleport it to where it's needed, which is a really neat feature. It's actually a feature that they lifted from their previous game, Universe at War, that had a faction that had these conduits, which was, again, a cool idea at the time. Alright, we really want to get another refinery out if we can. And as I said before, the distance really doesn't matter because they will produce a lot of stuff. Although you probably want to be closer for defensive purposes. But we're going to try and build a very small base here, and then we'll use our tridents to defend it. And we can try and hunt down some of the goo and do a little bit of damage before they overwhelm us like last time. So they don't play too differently to the beta, but they're subtly different in the ways that I think that matter. And then the goo is just wild and different. Like, it can instantly morph in units from these little masses of goo, which I find to be a really interesting way of doing things. Okay, we should have about finished the anti-heavy sentinel. We just need a little bit more cash at the moment before we're able to really do anything there. I want to send these guys out to scout a little bit. Maybe we can catch one of their scouts off guard and kill them. That would be quite nice. Just reduce their ability to really do any damage to us. So you've got the same attachment system with the humans. The tank attachment, artillery attachment, air attachment, the tech upgrades work in exactly the same way. Tech upgrades work pretty much the same way for all three factions. It's just the way that they're acquired for the goo is slightly different. You sacrifice a bunch of health to actually do it on your big mother goo rather than spending resources kind of in the same way. But you can do the same thing, large factories. You can build a teleporter here, which is cool. You can teleport units around the map, which is a neat little feature. You know, that's kind of almost a defining feature. It's a very Protoss kind of feature that the humans have here. So, outside of that, I don't think there's really a huge amount else to say. I honestly think that Grey Goo does a pretty damn good job here of making a sort of futuristic Command and Conquer. I would like to see an expansion with maybe more unit differentiation, because as I said, the units are subtly different, but they're not the sort of asymmetry that I'm used to from a game like StarCraft. I do like the fact that they made an effort to make units remain relevant throughout the game, and they also made scouting super important, which is, again, very valuable to me. The addition of the idea that you can climb up hills and also hide in forests is a nice addition. You know, it works well, and it is beneficial, I think, to the genre. Now, let's see if we can expand a little bit more here. Building a large factory would be nice. We're going to need to get some tech first, though. So if we could add a... Let's go air, actually. Let's go air with these guys. And add on an air thing there. And we can move the conduits out a little bit more so we have a little bit more space. And we'll be able to even move the anti-heavy sentinel in there to defend. Let's keep building tridents. They seem to do the job quite well. Again, not a particularly interesting unit, you know. That's maybe my biggest complaint about the whole damn thing. Like, there's no... Outside of the epic units, there's no individual unit that really intrigues me and has its kind of own unique style. They're all very functional. They all feel like they've been designed around a particular function. It's like, well, we need a siege unit. Well, we need an artillery piece. Well, we need an anti-armor unit. We need a scout. We need a bomber. We need a fighter. And then kind of really all they did at the end was build a bunch of really awesome, admittedly, super units. Maybe not the way to go. You know, I think that as a result, the identity of each individual... Oh, we actually haven't built a silo here. Wow. So I'm actually wasting things. That's not good at all. We don't want to do that. I'm going to pump that on there so it's connected to the refinery. So I think it's like that results in each faction kind of not really having its own hugely defined identity outside of its visual style. So I think that's maybe something they can work on with expansion content. I'm going to build a monitor scout here so we can have a look around. But outside that, Grey Goo is pretty damn good, frankly. This is a nice return to form. You know, the Westwood style is here in many ways. This is the kind of real-time strategy that I think people that don't like StarCraft due to the speed and APM requirements will enjoy, because it's a bit slower. It takes a lot of the heavy lifting off your back, and that's not a bad thing. It is not. At least not in my opinion. Sights now have 8 ammo. That would be pretty good. Let's get that as an upgrade right there. And once we get that sorted out and we connect an air attachment to it, we're going to start to get really interesting. We'll be able to get out some really cool units. So if we want to buy Scythe Hair, we need a tank attachment and an air attachment. They're pretty expensive, but I think we'll be able to make it happen. There we go. I think I'm going to expand the conduit cross out so that we can actually move our turret a little bit. There we go. That's what I like to see. We don't have enough units, though, I can tell you that for a fact. I think we have a slight visual problem here in that we can't actually see what's going on. Where's that aerial scout that I built? That should do the job. There we go. Sweet. And then we can now move that, and then I can show you how the teleportation works, because that's pretty neat. We can teleport the structure right here. So now it's a little bit closer to the extractor, and it's going to be able to do a better job. It's pretty cool, right? Kind of nice. Yeah, it's a very competent real-time strategy, in my opinion. Very competent, and I think that's a good enough compliment, frankly. It doesn't have to be super great, because frankly, we're starved for this genre. What we needed is something that worked really well, and didn't go too out of its way to break the formula. And that's exactly what Grey Goo is. And that, to me, is absolutely enough. That is exactly what I wanted. And as a result, I'm enjoying it a great deal. Okay. Well, I would like to kind of end the video by blowing these guys up and taking a little bit of vengeance for last time. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to blow up these scout units, which can actually be upgraded with an anti-air attack. We're going to get some Scythe-heavy fighters out, and we're going to start to murder some goo. That's how it's going to be. We're going to send our air scout out here so that we have a little bit of range. All right, we are building the Scythe-heavy fighters out, and we're actually going to just stay on 2 expansions for the time being. I don't want to grow out any further. Map variety is also kind of a bit of a concern. I believe they're thinking about putting a map editor in. That's my understanding of it. But right now it only has a fairly small selection of maps, which is a bit of concern to some people. There just aren't enough maps. That said, I mean, I'm happy to play the same RTS on the same map till the end of bloody time. as I have for so very long with Finn's Revenge in Supreme Commander. I'm gonna go try and hunt this goo down. All right, do we have a fighter out yet? Have we managed to build one? We're almost there. These things do take a lot. And we should have the research done as well for the scythe. This is going to be great. Ah, and they're trying to hide right over there. We're not going to have any of that nonsense. Not anymore. Now we have scythe-heavy fighters. These guys are about to learn a world of pain. Let's move them in. What do we see? Oh, they have some anti-air. That's bad news. But we can blow them away regardless, because these guys are pretty damn good. We've got a couple of bullets left. They do have to move backwards once the ammunition is... Oh, God, why? Going air was a terrible plan. All right, we need to switch our plan immediately to something with bigger guns. Let's go tanks. All right, actually, we already have a tank attachment, don't we? What do we need? A stealth attack, a longbow. I think, like, we just go, like, mass trident or revolvers here, actually. Let's just spam revolvers out. Well, so much for the sights. They built a ton of anti-air units. The AI is pretty good. What can I say? It realized what I was doing. Sneaky little bastard that it is. Oh my, oh my. Yeah. Probably a good time to conclude. Grey Goo is really solid. It has AAA polish, AAA quality. It feels like a solid revival of RTS, and I hope that it's followed by many, many more good games. I've had no problem with the multiplayer. The netcode seems absolutely solid, from what I can tell. That's from my personal experience, by the way, in the beta, not in the launch build. So please take that with a pinch of salt. Do read the Steam forums to see if anyone's actually having any real problems. I need to, like, not fight this. Actually, they have mostly anti-air. I can actually fight this. I do have a stealth air fighter there. We can see if we can send it over and maybe attack something. We're starting to build out a bunch of revolvers. Let's get some tank upgrades as well. Structures. Heavy units. We get a light unit upgrade. Harvesters gain stealth. That would be good. Could probably add that one on. Yep, the goo forgot to build... this is actually a little bit odd, because I would have thought... Because there are some attack units here. I would have thought the AI would actually try, at least, to fight me, and then really not. Which is a little bit weird. Alright, kite. Uh-oh. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be getting much out of that.
Unit under attack.
Grey Goo's pretty good. If you like RTS, you should enjoy some Grey Goo, as far as I'm concerned. Name's still silly. No real doubt about that. You can pick this one up on Steam, ladies and gentlemen. It is out right now. Multiplayer games are going. Game seems to run really well. It's polished. I've seen no real noticeable bugs outside of that little AI issue that I just saw there. This is a good return to form for Petroglyph, as far as I am concerned. Grey Goo, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. If you do want to see more gameplay of Grey Goo, I did do a stream a few days ago, and while I don't archive my streams on my channel, there's an unofficial channel that does it, and you can go watch it there if you so desire. Let's see if these revolvers are actually enough to hopefully blow up this army. I doubt it, but we can give it a bash, right? We can be a little bit hopeful. So I put a link in the description below this video if you want to check out that stream. That also lets me show you the goo and some of the super units as well, which hopefully you will enjoy watching, because they're pretty fun. Thank you very much for watching, folks. I rambled a bit, as I do with RTS. I do apologize, but I'm just glad the damn genre's back. I'll see you next time. Go revolvers! Oh dear, they're a bit outgunned, aren't they? Oh my.